Hi everybody, welcome to Dynamo Sword Channel. I'm David, and today on Dynamo Sword Channel I will be sharing the intro to a new series for the channel based on the Oakeshott Typology. This intro will give you a general look into the typology, what it is, how its classifications work, and how it benefits the medieval European sword enthusiast today. From there, the series will focus on the specifics of the typology, such as blade, guard, and pommel types, as well as sword groups, hilt families, and even a video on how modern reproductions fit to be classified to the typology. Well, I hope you enjoy this new series, and with that, let's get with this first video. So if any of you sword enthusiasts enjoy medieval European swords, or if you're a frequent viewer of this channel, I'm sure you've heard mention of the Oakeshott Typology. So just what is the Oakeshott Typology? Well, it's a classification of European swords encompassing the various blades, guards, and pommel types of swords from the high medieval period to the post-Renaissance. This time frame spanned over 6 centuries and showed much progress in not only the advancements of weaponry, but also armor. Now, some could look at medieval European swords as, kind of bland or simple. But when looked at in detail, in focus, there is quite a significance to the changes in blade shape, guard, and pommel styles, and even specific usage of these parts of the complete sword. For example, there are 27 different blade types in the typology, counting subtypes, more than 37 pommel types, counting variations in subtypes, and 12 specific guard styles with moderate or unique variations. Plus more if we factor in those blades, pommels, and guards that don't necessarily fit into the typology and are considered unclassified. Now, as you can see, the medieval sword is far from simple and is, in my opinion, one of the most advanced and evolving swords in the history of the world. So, how did this typology come about, you might ask? Well, it started quite early in the mid 19th century when historians and archaeologists began to give greater interest in the study of medieval European swords. Unfortunately, their classifications were crude at best and didn't really focus on any specific time frame, use, or detail of these swords, kind of lumping them all into one group of swords, from early medieval swords of the 8th and 10th centuries to the more intricate hilted swords of the later 15th and 16th centuries. Now, it wasn't until in 1919 when Dr. Jan Petersen published the Norwegian Viking sword, which classified the various hilts of swords used in the Viking or Carolingian era of Europe. Now, in 1927, Dr. R.E.M. Wheeler simplified Petersen's typology as well as expanded the typology of Petersen and included a more broader focus on blade variation of Viking era swords. It was then in 1960 when Ewart Oakeshott expanded their works, adding 2 additional hilt types. These works were a major step in the right direction to understanding the differences in the sword or swords of the various centuries in Europe. But it wasn't until Ewart Oakeshott published in 1964 The Sword in the Age of Chivalry that we see a stronger focus on the blade types and specifically medieval period swords come to fruition. This Typology, created by Mr. Oakeshott's years of passion, study, and dedication to the medieval sword, has become what we will be focusing on in this series. So to break it down, the typology, to break down the typology, we first must start somewhere. And in my opinion, the best place to start is the blades. So why the blades, you ask? Well, they are the most significant and defining feature of these swords regarding classification. You can technically put any hilt on a blade, but the blade is what will tell you when or how a sword was used. The blade portion of the typology is the best place to start to understand the specific differences in swords from the various centuries and regions of medieval Europe. The blade portion of the typology places 13 types of blades with an additional 14 subtypes for that total of 27 blade variations. So I will have a video explaining all of these types and their respective subtypes. But first, we will focus on the details of the blade portions of the typology, namely sword groups. Now, I've mentioned in many of my reviews what the two sword groups are, but in this video, we will go into more detail into understanding why there are two separate groups of swords in the typology and what significance it has to a sword's region, function, and time frame of use. Then I will have a video discussing the actual blade types and their subtypes. Next, we will move on to guard styles and look at each individual guard and what makes each unique, both aesthetically but also functionally. From there, we will focus on the various pommels and how they differ culturally, functionally, and even aesthetically, as this mattered quite a lot in medieval Europe. Next, I will discuss sword families and how much, like blade groups, these sword families and their hilt configurations can show a sword's region, popularity, and of course, time frame of use. Then finally, the last video will focus on modern reproductions and just how to classify these swords like I do in my reviews through the Oakeshott typology, and just a little more detail than what I do in the videos, and maybe give a little hint on the behind the scenes on what I look at, especially with the kind of more ahistorical, you know, budget or sub $300 swords, which sometimes can miss the typology simply because they don't have the specifics, but can still be classified without being either too critical or too lenient. So I hope you enjoyed this new series, and not only does it inform you on the great wealth of knowledge it brings to us as medieval European sword enthusiasts, but also it allows you to see these swords from perhaps a different perspective and understanding. So I hope you're all looking forward to the next video in the series, which will be on sword groups. Until then, be sure to like, share, and subscribe. And thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.